This episode of Locked On Lightning, we're discussing this past week's road trip, the Lightning lose in Calgary, and we look towards this week's games, all that and more. But first, let's play that music.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Tanker. I just want to remind you that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. Make every moment more. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. So today we're talking about looking back on this past 5-game road trip, which got off to a good start. The Lightning win their first 3 games. Their first 3 games. The one in the Saturday game in St. Louis, and then the Lightning travel out to Seattle, a team that we all know that we have spoken about on this podcast. Not only spoken about on this podcast, but has really been one of the main storylines this season in the NHL. The Lightning go out there, take care of business pretty easily for the most part, 4-1 win on Monday, and then they head into Vancouver, as we all know, a very dysfunctional situation there going over in Vancouver. They win that game 5-2. And then the next 2 games that came up on that road trip were Edmonton and Calgary, two teams that I really believed were going to give the Lightning a run for their money. And that's exactly what happened. The Lightning dropped that one 5-3 in Edmonton. I was very, very nervous about that game just because we all know the Lightning have struggled to a certain degree with Edmonton, win, lose, or shootout over the last couple of seasons. I mean, I don't know what it is. I mean, and I'm not upset about it. It's just, it is what it is at this point. But we all know the story when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers, what needs to be done when you're facing the Edmonton Oilers, and that is really try, if you can, stop Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. And I spoke about leading up to that game that really when you go up against Edmonton, keep them off the power play, limit the man advantage for them. And then the Lightning proceed to take 4 penalties in that game. The Edmonton Oilers capitalizing on one of those, but the Lightning still cannot give themselves. I mean, if you look at the numbers in this game, they pretty much did everything except win in this one. Obviously, there's more to the game with that, but really, it's frustrating, to me in a way. Like I said, I'm not upset about this loss against Edmonton. I'm more upset, frustrated, just because I always feel, and if you've been a listener of this show for quite some time, you know that I always say that I always want the Lightning. I feel like the division games and the out of the division games against some of the top tier players, not teams, but the players, the players, the superstars across the NHL. The games against those guys, I really think are somewhat of a gut check for Tampa Bay. And it doesn't really matter if they're playing well or they're playing below the standards that we have for them or the standards that they have set for themselves. And in this one, I just, as much as I really want to dive deep into it, and the thing is that you let, I guess I'm more frustrated with this loss because if the Lightning go out there in Edmonton, and I'll get to Calgary in just a bit because I have some thoughts about that as well. If the Lightning go out there and lose in Edmonton 5-3 by the same exact score, but you don't see, if you see McDavid score or Draisaitl score, either or, that's one thing. I could take that. We all know you can't stop both. You can't shut down both of these guys in the same night. I mean, that's just really doesn't matter who's in net for the Lightning that night. That's a tall order for any team in the NHL. But you go out there and you take 4 penalties, and then you have both of those guys score. It's frustrating. It's just one of those things where you want to perform your best against two of the probably 2 guys that are in the top 5 in the NHL in terms of great players, and you go out there and you have Connor McDavid score 2 points against you. You have Draisaitl do the same, and it's frustrating. And then alongside that, you have Zach Hyman, who I think is also probably one of the better players on the Edmonton Oiler team. The guy who I would rather beat the Lightning in that situation than McDavid and Draisaitl. But nonetheless, still good performances from the Lightning in this one. Hagel gets his 18th goal of the season. Stamkos continues to roll with his 22nd goal, as well as Point getting his 27th of the season. So guys are continuing to play well. So that is a positive from that game. Now, looking forward from that game to the Saturday game against Calgary, which this has a bad taste in my mouth, not because that the Lightning gave up 6 goals in this one. It's because of kind of some of the things that we saw, some of the storylines that were surrounding this game, and also one thing in particular that the Lightning did not do well. And so there was 2 instances throughout the game where I was really, you don't need to see this. I don't know what the story is. If you know the full story to this, please go ahead and drop a comment below on our YouTube channel below this video. I really want to hear the full story. It's just one of those things that irritates me. But there was a video circulating around social media. I don't know if this person is a Lightning fan. I don't know if this was just a Calgary fan. Now, if this is a person from Calgary who's a Flames fan, just trying to stir the pot, that's one thing. I mean, whatever. I mean, it is what it is. But if this is a Lightning fan, and the video I'm referring to is the video that surfaced of a person in attendance throwing a Lightning jersey on the ice. And if this was an actual Lightning fan doing this, I mean, if you're a listener of the show, I just want to know why. Like, what was the thought process around this? What I mean, the Lightning, and this, all this does is reflect back on the Lightning. This isn't going to be in terms of this is going to reflect badly on the Lightning franchise, because you look at how other franchises and other sports, I mean, the ones that are really hated, the Dallas Cowboys, the New York Yankees, I guess the Lakers now, I don't know, but in basketball. But the point I'm trying to grab at is that the Lightning have had a ton of success in the last couple of years. I mean, 2 Stanley Cups, 3 Stanley Cup final appearances. And yes, they didn't win last year, of course. And then you lose a game like this, where during a season where the Lightning are playing very well, and really, if you look at their roster, there are some holes definitely that really, hopefully, can be filled here and there. But really, what I'm trying to get is that it just, you look spoiled. You look like one of those spoiled fans who is the fan of a team that has been playing phenomenal, and yeah, every team's gonna have their bad night, and then you throw a jersey onto the ice. I mean, come on, man. Like, there's no need for that. That was just something that I saw. I must have looked away at the wrong moment when I was watching the game on Saturday, because I didn't realize that happened, or I must have stepped out of the room, but I didn't realize that happened until after the game was over when I went on Twitter. And so it's just a bad look. And then the other thing that really irked me throughout this game is the I wish that the Lightning could have shot a little bit more. They could have gotten a lot of more shots. I think 24 shots on goal. I just, it's inexcusable at this point in the season. Now, if we were in October, maybe we could probably chalk this up to still finding our groove early on in the season. That's one thing, but 24, come on. And then alongside that, you had your face-off percentage was phenomenal. It was close to 70%. It was 65 on the night. So that shows that you're controlling the puck and you still give up 6 goals, and it's not always on the goaltender. Let's there will be some goals, we all know, that Vasilevsky will let in. It just happens, but at the same time, it's also dependent on what's going on in front of him. And, that's for another episode. Maybe we'll do that tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that, because really want to dive into Victor Hedman. I think it's time we have that conversation with him. And, there was also a tweet that I saw. But 0 for 6 on the power play. 0 for 6 on the power play. So me, if you've been listening and watching to the show for a while. The Lightning, I'm curious, as I don't watch the post-game stuff. I rarely do. Because no matter what a player says or a coach says after the game, doesn't make any difference to me on how the result happened or what happened during the result. All that matters to me is if they make the adjustments going forward. I mean, 0 for 6. You put yourself in a great situation for 6 penalties, 6 power plays, and you can't capitalize on any of them. And, really, I'm going to put frankly, if the Lightning were wondering after the game why they lost, it's because you didn't score any power play goals. And it's quite honestly shocking the way this team has played, that they didn't net anything in those 6 tries. But yes, those are some of the things that stuck out to me over the last 2 games of this 5-game road trip. Overall, 3-2 on a very tough road trip. I'll take it. Just not a good end, a great start, but a bad ending to what really the Lightning should have gone 4-1. I think that, Edmonton, that was a toss-up. Calgary, the way they've been playing, I still firmly believe that the Lightning should have won that game. So we'll see how they bounce back this week against some very formidable opponents, which we'll be talking about coming up in the second segment. But first, I want to talk about one of today's sponsors, and that is Athletic Greens. Now, Athletic Greens, I love this. I start my morning with it every single day. Just 1 scoop of powder and in a glass of water, and you're set to go. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting good. It supports better sleep quality and recovery, supports mental clarity and alertness. It's the one thing that I love about Athletic Greens. It uses the best of the best products based on the latest science, with constant product iterations and third-party testing. So right now it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL network. That's, again, athleticgreens.com/NHL network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. So starting things out in the second segment of our show, I just want to thank everybody once again for liking and subscribing to the podcast. Give us a follow wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. So really, like I said, a frustrating end to the Lightning road trip on the West Coast, but they get to jump right back into it. A little bit of a redemption here tomorrow night at home against the Minnesota Wild, a team in which I really thought that the Lightning in their last meeting, and if you want to go back and listen to me really just giving the Minnesota Wild no respect at all. The Minnesota Wild have really impressed me this year. I mean, I said in the last preview podcast, I guess, when these two teams played each other, and I say it here and there on the Locked On NHL channel on Thursdays when Chris Masilli and I are doing our rankings. I give these guys no respect at all. I mean, I think that they're a very tough team. I think they play very well. They're one of those teams that, and this is my thought process that I feel that has evolved, and I feel like the NHL, especially the teams that don't really have clear cut top tier level superstars. Um, I'm talking about top 10 guys now, whether if you think Kirill Kaprizov is a top 10 player in this league, just in the forward category. I mean, that is up for debate. I think he has that that potential to get to that, but I still think that there's still a lot for him to accomplish before we could even put him into that conversation. But the Wild, third in the Central right now. The Colorado Avalanche is starting to pick up on them, just 1 point behind them in the division. But the Lightning losing their last game to the Minnesota Wild 5-1, and now this matchup will cap off their 2-game series on the season. So I would like the Lightning to at least split this. The Wild come into this game 5-3-2 in their last 10, while the Lightning also riding a 2-game losing streak, such as the Wild are coming into this game 6-4. So at least the positive from that, it's a winning record, one that you could definitely hang your hat on in your last 10. 6-4, I'll take it. It's better than 4-6. But the thing that I really like most about it is that we're not playing a lot of extra time games. The Lightning, whether it's win or lose, they're finishing their games in regulation, which I think is a huge positive, which I think is something that, especially if they win, it's something that you definitely want to continue to do. I mean, we spoke about it last year where it seemed as though, even though I think the Lightning only played 7 overtime games or 7 games beyond regulation, that's very much a lot of hockey, extra hockey to be played, considering what the Lightning have had to do over the last couple of years. And I think we could all say, not to make any excuses, but could very much have played a role in what happened in the Stanley Cup Finals last year. So I'm glad we're starting to see the Lightning fixing that. Now, obviously, some of that has to do with luck. Uh, that also has something to do with the Lightning falling behind and being able to come back and win games in regulation, or winning games and holding on to the lead in regulation instead of the opposing team coming back and winning it in overtime, or the shootout, which you never want to do or see, especially the shootout, which is, I still think, is not something that's benefiting the NHL. But looking at this game, players to watch if you want to follow along, because I like looking at this. I look at the matchup preview on NHL.com because it's very accurate. It really paints you a story of what to look out for in this game. You got Kirill Kaprizov, who I just spoke about. I said I think he's a very talented player. I think he's definitely the top dog on this team for this Minnesota Wild team. I think he has a ton of. He's part of the reason why they are where they are right now. He has 7 points in his last 5 games, and 5 of those are assists. So it shows you that he's not just a scorer, that he's able to do a bunch of other things. He has 26 goals this season and 56 points. So clearly the top dog on that team, the guy that, and I say this for every team that has that one guy that's their one go-to, is that I really think that you want to have, if you want to have the other players on the team beat you, other than their top dog. But what I was alluding to before I lost my place, and I'm rounding it back up, is that the thing that has changed with this Wild team, and I really firmly believe that this is what you're going to see out of kind of like these teams that don't really have a not I guess a superstar. I guess, the teams that have stars, but not a superstar. And I guess the best team to look at that is a comparison of that, or has really done a good job of kind of being a top tier team, and having not just one or two or three players winning games for you, but your whole team from top to bottom is the Carolina Hurricanes. And I feel like the Minnesota Wild this season have really tapped in to that level of play. Now, I think what it's going to come down to in this game, and I firmly believe this is for most games. I mean, some games it's more so like with Edmonton. I feel like it's they're superstars, but in this game, I think it's going to come down to goaltending. I really think it is. We're going to see Vasilevsky again. Uh, Vasilevsky comes into this game 20-12-1 with a goals against average of 2.55, save percentage of 916, and like I said, and I'll say this for every episode, for every matchup for the rest of the season, is that I firmly believe the thing that he's really been lacking this season is that shutout. And I really, he has really come along since the beginning of the season. And I've said it on this podcast, I said it on other podcast appearances, um, that I, as maybe off as he has seemed this year, I still think by all accounts, and if you look at past seasons, he's having a very good season. The reason why it may not feel like it is because he doesn't seem as dominant. He's not getting those shutouts. He's not in the conversation. He's not really anywhere near in the conversation for the Vezina. And I think the reasoning for that, it's not so much him, it's because goaltending has gotten so much better in across the board for the NHL, which is kind of crazy to say considering we're also seeing an uptick in scoring this year. So that even shows you, you know, how good guys like Linus Ullmark in Boston have been this year. A guy who his goals against average is under two. So, and he is just been phenomenal there. So, and if to put in perspective, is the numbers that Vasilevsky has this year not too far off from the year when he won the Vezina. So put that in perspective, or take that as you will. So the Lightning are going to have to go out there. They're either going to have to beat Marc-Andre Fleury or uh, Gustafsson, who either or, I don't really care. They are two very similar goaltenders in their numbers, and in their performances. Um, Either or, I think the Lightning are talented enough to force those guys to make mistakes, to really be able to get down low, and really create a lot of pressure for the goaltenders. And really, that's what it comes down to: create pressure, uh, fire off a lot more shots, fire off more than 24. I think if the Lightning get to the 30 shot mark, I think that is a good spot for them in terms of stats where you want to be on the shot tally for the night. So that's a good number. I think the Lightning should really aim for, and capitalize on the power play. I mean, it's pretty much, the formula hasn't changed for this team. It's just that they just go out there and they can't produce, they can't be effective. And to use the old hockey phrase, or thing that you probably hear everywhere else, they got to go out there and work harder than the other team. And sometimes we don't see that, and or they don't work hard enough to where it's not good enough for them. It's not good enough to put them on top of the teams that they're playing. Let me know what you think below. I think that the Lightning really should go out there. Worst case scenario, this will be a tight one, but I think we're going to see a good number of goals in this game. I would probably say 4-3 Lightning for this one. So keep an eye out for that. So we'll wrap things up in just a little bit. But first, I want to talk about another one of today's sponsors, and that is FanDuel. Now, the NFL playoffs are here, and we're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On, because they're the number one sports book in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. I love FanDuel. I use it. I've been using it for a very long time, and I love all the props you could do, all the mix and matches you could do on your parlays. It's phenomenal. And so really it gives you a lot of freedom to go out there and really, be able to win some money. And the best part about it for me, because I'm always on the move, and I love the app. It's safe, it's secure, and it's super easy to use. So football fans, don't miss out. Place your first $5 bet to get $150 in free bets, win or lose at FanDuel.com/locked on. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So wrapping things up on the show, yeah, basically the tail of the tape for the Lightning. I guess the last 4 days is underperform and find out what happens. I mean, the regular, the regular saying, but we can't say that here. This is family friendly programming here, but you get my point. You get the fact that they need to go out there, and really it comes down to what I said just a couple of moments ago. They got to work harder than the other team. They got to be more disciplined than the other team. And this team has shown, for the most part, over the last couple weeks, last month, that they can do that. And so it's that more frustrating when you go out there. You, like I said, not upset about the Edmonton game. That could have gone either way. Say what you want about Edmonton this season. Still, they have two out of the top 5 players in the NHL. So I'm not going to knock the Lightning for that. And to try and shut down both of those guys on the same night, it's a tough task for any team, any goaltender. So whatever. Calgary definitely should have won that game. 0 for 6 on the power play is inexcusable. So the Lightning need to turn it around. They get to turn around. And that's a good thing I love about having a tough schedule. And if you follow us on our social media accounts, LO_Lightning on Twitter and LockedOn_Lightning on Instagram, we posted something on Twitter about a couple of weeks ago. I think it was from tankathon.com. I may have mentioned it on our past episodes at the time, that the Lightning have the third most difficult remaining schedule left out of all 32 teams in the NHL. And I actually, some people might say, oh my goodness, this could be a disaster. But I think that's perfect for the Tampa Bay Lightning, because you come off, like I said, a pretty much disappointing loss to Calgary. Let's be honest here. After losing a game, which, not surprising, losing to Edmonton after winning your first 3 on a 5-game road trip. And you get to go back up against one of the heavyweights, or the light heavyweights of the NHL, with Minnesota. And then you got your division rival 2 days later with Boston, arguably probably going to be the President's Trophy winners. Let's be honest here. And then you get the Kings, a scrappy young team, a team that you don't know what you're going to get out of these guys any given night. So, and then after that, you get to kind of relax and with the All-Star weekend, and jump right into it in February, back into it with a back-to-back with Florida and San Jose. Florida obviously underperforming this year, still a team that you shouldn't take lightly. And then you got Colorado and Dallas. So really good chance for the Lightning, because, I don't really take the games against the lower level teams really any seriously, because I'm a firm believer that games against, as much as you enjoy them, games against Columbus, Arizona, some of the other not so good teams, the Blackhawks, as much as you love to win those games, those to me, they don't build any momentum. Especially if they're in the middle of a winning streak, they don't really do anything for you. It's like you're being a heavyweight in boxing, and then you go down, you fight a middleweight, and then you go back up. That's not going to do anything for you. That's a sparring. And I feel like that's a good kind of way to look at it. Like you go up against a very tough team. If you go from Boston and then you play Columbus and then you go back to Colorado, Yeah, you played, but between those 2 matchups, but did you play anything that was of quality? It was just a sparring session, really, out there. And that's why I love having the Lightning have this tough schedule. And that's why it keeps them honest. It allows them to stay focused. It allows them to go out there and continue to do all of the right things, because I feel like the games in which the Lightning play lesser teams, those are the games that could screw up everything for you going forward. So let me know, am I being a little maybe over the top about this, or I firmly believe I'm on track with this, because I with my assessment, and it keeps all these players fresh. I love playing against the top teams. Obviously, it really, like I said, it continues to keep you honest. It continues you to stay on the right path and string together, another winning streak. I firmly believe you get by Minnesota, you get by Boston. The Kings should be somewhat a pedestrian game that you could win. Then you come back and you could dump on the Florida Panthers, and guess what? You got yourself a little winning streak if you could knock off San Jose, and you're also refreshed after that week off going into Colorado and Dallas. So definitely these last 3 games of the month definitely set you up for really, really good streak and a really good stretch heading into February after the All-Star break, as we see kind of an up and down here and there in the schedule. So we'll be back tomorrow to talk about more. Tomorrow we're going to be doing, if you saw part 1 of our midseason grades, we're doing part 2 with the defensive core. So check that out, and the goaltenders. So check that out all and more. And please, once again, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow wherever podcasts are distributed. Give me a follow on Twitter at DankyDank, DENKYD8NK. Love hearing from all of you, and subscribe to the channel on YouTube. So that's been it for this episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. I'll talk to you in the next one.